Gemara at the top of Gemara Brachot Yud Zayin Amud Bet. This is where the Gemara is commenting on the Mishnah that we learned yesterday about the machloket between Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel and Chachamim. So if we remind ourselves from yesterday, in the Mishnah, the end of the Mishnah, the Chachamim had established, Rabbanan or Chachamim had established, Chatan im rotzeh likro koreh, right? Yachol likro. So if a groom would like to opt in to say Kriyat Shema on his wedding night, even though he's exempt from saying it, he may read it. And then Rabban Gamliel said, no, not everyone who wants to say Kriyat Shema can say it. And we can assume that's because Rabban Gamliel thinks that there's a reason why you're exempt from it. You're not going to be able to fulfill the mitzvah properly. Rabban Gamliel says you're going to end up taking God's name in vain when you say Shema incorrectly with the incorrect kind of kavanah. So now the Gemara makes the observation: L'meimra d'Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel chayash liyuhara v'Rabbanan lo chayshe liyuhara. So this is to say, right, this machloket implies that Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel is concerned about yuhara, about religious arrogance. And Rabbanan are not concerned about religious arrogance, meaning that Rabban Gamliel is saying, well, if you want to say Shema on your wedding night, that's not allowed because we know that you're exempt. You're exempt for a reason. And by then, opting in to say Kriyat Shema, you're asserting that you're better than everyone else, or you're better than anyone else who's a chatan. We have to keep in mind, though, that Rabban Gamliel himself said Kriyat Shema on his wedding night. So clearly for himself, he wasn't concerned for yuhara. And we have to think about what that means for us. And Rabbanan, on the other hand, are not concerned about yuhara. They think that each person can decide for themselves whether or not they want to say Kriyat Shema on their wedding night. You don't have to say it because you're exempt, but if you want to say it, you can. And it's not an indication that you're, religiously arrogant to say Shema on your wedding night if you feel like you can really do it and have the proper kavanah. But now the Gemara brings up an issue. But we learned the opposite. We were taught the opposite, actually, about these two opinions. Ditnan, that we learned in the Mishnah, makom shenahagu asot malacha b'tisha b'av osin, makom shenahagu shalo asot ein osin, v'chol makom talmidei chachamim b'tilim. Right, so there's another Mishnah in which we have a machloket between Chachamim and Rabban Gamliel, and this is the opinion of the Chachamim. What if I want to go to work on Tisha B'Av? There's no issue technically with there's no isur to do melacha on Tisha B'Av. Right? I'm allowed to turn on the lights, turn the TV, drive on Tisha B'Av. There's no isur against that. But what about going to work, right? Clearly the spirit of the day is to, sit and daven and, sit in the fast and learn about the tragedies that the Jewish people have gone through. So going to work is certainly not ideal for Tisha B'Av, but, what if I want to go to work that day and I'll be able to fast? I can daven in the morning. I'm not going to miss any, I'm not going to do anything that's technically asur, maybe just not fully in the spirit of the day. So the Chachamim come and say, in a place where the minhag is for people to go to work on Tisha B'Av, you can go to work, right? You can do malacha. But in a place where people don't do work or people don't, do malacha on Tisha B'Av, you should not do it. So really, it's minhag hamakom, right? You should just follow the custom of wherever you live. So if you live in a place where most people are not going to work on Tisha B'Av or not doing malacha on Tisha B'Av, then you shouldn't do it, right? You shouldn't stick out and kind of go against the practice of your place, right? The idea of minhag hamakom is something we see in halacha, especially when it comes to Yom Tov Sheni, right? It's not an isur, right? It's not like you're prohibited from doing it, but it's the minhag, right? It actually has some level of halachic status. Excuse me. And then at the end, Chachamim add, but if you're a Talmid Chacham, wherever you are, whether you live in a place where people go to work on Tisha B'Av or people don't, you should not work, right? You should stay home and not do malacha and just daven all day. Now, that's all the opinion of the Chachamim, right? So the important part here is that Chachamim think if you're a Talmid Chacham, no matter where you live, don't do malacha on Tisha B'Av. Otherwise, just follow the custom of where you live. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel omer le'olam ya'aseh kol adam et atzmo ki Talmid Chacham. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel says, well, my advice when it comes to going to work on Tisha B'Av is that everyone should stay home. Everyone should consider themselves, make themselves as though they are a Talmid Chacham. So now we have an issue. Kashya d'Rabbanan ad Rabbanan. Kashya d'Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel ad Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel. Now we have an issue. Because we established from our Mishnah about Kriyat Shema, it seems like in our Mishnah about Kriyat Shema, Rabban Gamliel is the one who's concerned about people seeming religiously arrogant, right? He doesn't want people to kind of say, well, I can hack it at, saying Shema with the right kavanah on my wedding night. That, to Rabban Gamliel, looks religiously arrogant. So he says, don't do it, right? No one should be saying Kriyat Shema on their wedding night. Yet here, in this Mishnah about going to work on Tisha B'Av, Rabban Gamliel seems to say exactly the opposite, right? Rabban Gamliel says, everyone should consider themselves to be like a Talmid Chacham, and therefore everyone should stay home from work on Tisha B'Av. You shouldn't do Malacha on Tisha B'Av. So now we have a contradiction, right? We have an issue and a difficulty between Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel's opinion in the Mishnah about Kriyat Shema and Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel's opinion about Tisha B'Av. And then Rabbanan, right, their opinions also flip-flopped, right? So when it came to Kriyat Shema, right, the Chachamim said, well, if you want to say Kriyat Shema on your wedding night, go for it. We're not going to stop you. It's like a nice thing to do. Why not? Right? It's not, we won't be concerned that it looks religiously arrogant to do that. Whereas in this case, with Tisha B'Av, we're going to work on Tisha B'Av, the Chachamim say, no, you should just follow whatever custom you have. If you're a Talmid Chacham, okay, then obviously you should stay home, but otherwise you should really do, whatever your minhag hamakom, which implies that, let's say I live in a place where most people don't go to work, where most people go to work, and I want to stay home from work. Chachamim are telling me, no, you should go to work. You should just follow the practice of where you live. So now we have an issue between these two Mishnayot. What is the overall philosophy of Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel when it comes to Yuhara? What's the overall philosophy about Rabbanan when it comes to Yuhara? And maybe we can think a little bit, we'll talk next class, how could we kind of look at these cases as very different things, right? Clearly we're not going to have one fast, hard rule about how Yuhara works exactly in all cases, but maybe we can make a certain rule about, okay, we'll apply Yuhara in this kind of case, but not in that kind of case.